Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my review of Sonic Frontiers. This is going up a week later than I expected, but I took the previous week off to do some rest, spend time with the kids, and start planning for the following year. So, my review for Sonic Frontiers. There's going to be spoilers, but I'll warn you before I list any of them. So overall, for a non-spoiler review, if you want to just hear my ranking straight off the bat, I would say I would give it a 9 out of 10. It is an awesome game. The story was great. The controls were amazing. It did have a little bit of flaws, but overall, I would highly recommend it for anyone who loves Sonic games, or just anyone who enjoys open world games that doesn't take 100 hours to complete, like myself. Now, my ranking is somewhat of an ignorant ranking. If you've played all the Sonic games, you will still enjoy it. But from what I've read from other people who have, the flaws of the game would be more glaring. However, as someone who played Sonic 1 through 3, Sonic Spinball, Sonic CD, and Sonic 3D, and from that point on, did not play a Sonic game up until Sonic Mania, and I played like 30 minutes of Sonic Colors. This is awesome, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that would be my basic non-spoiling review. It's awesome, 9 out of 10. If you enjoy it, go play it. Now for spoilers, I've heard a lot of people not like the cyberspace worlds, boards, whatever you call them. Because since they've played all the games that I missed, cyberspace worlds are mostly a direct copy of a previous board. And so their complaint is that, why would I get this game when I can go back and just play the original where it's from? For me, they do explain it in the game itself, that while he's in there, because of the way the cyberspace works, it uses his memories in order to help him understand what's going on. So obviously, they're using previous boards as part of his memory. I mean, that's a good explanation. They didn't just completely ignore that fact. And even though a lot of people criticize it, I greatly enjoyed the cyberspace worlds. I can only think of one of them that I did not enjoy at all. I thought it was kind of bland, the music was bland, but that's it. All the other ones were awesome. From either great to play, to I want to keep playing it over and over again. As for characters, there are 3 heroes and 1 villain that we all know. I'm sure you can guess who the villain is, Dr. Eggman, of course. But the 3 characters are Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. And they have a story arc on their own that has some incredible character development throughout their board. So each island has one of the 3 heroes. And as the story progresses on the island, they each learn a different thing. For Amy, it's that she wants to travel and to share her love. Okay. With Knuckles, he really starts to see how he wants to be around people more and not just stay and guard the Mastered Emerald. For Tails, who I would say had the best story arc, he has finally seen that he has been in Sonic's coattails for far too long, and that he needs to venture out on his own to become his own hero. I'm really hoping there's a spin-off, or maybe in the next game, that we do get a Tails solo That would be awesome. And there's one person I have not been mentioning, which is Eggman. He is great in this game. He is what I would picture Eggman to be. He is very smart. He was able to activate it and hack the cyberspace, kind of. He is also arrogant. Obviously, he does not want to work with Sonic at all. When Sage brought it up one time, the first time I should say, he's like, no, I'll never do that. And then even at the end, when they finally are working together, he basically said they're not working together, that Sonic now works for him, which is great. That I can definitely see Eggman twisting their partnership, as in, no, we're not working together. He's just working for me, and the goal is to get the Chaos Emeralds to defeat the end. So that was great. And the Eggman memos. Oh, I love that they added those to hear from his perspective from all the things that was going on, as well as his thoughts on each of the three other characters, with Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. And then with his relationship with Sage, yeah, that was beautiful. And if you watch my playthrough, the end, I could not speak through that final song, and I explained why during the song. I added the subtitles, so I'm not going to go into that, but we'll touch more on that when we get to music. Now to the designs of the islands. There are 5 islands, but there's also 3. This is something that comes up in criticisms, is that the first island, Kronos, is actually split into 3 islands. So the first island, the 4th, and the 5th are all on one island, just in a separate area. You know, I don't have any beef against that. And you really do have to look out and explore it a lot to see where the invisible walls are and where the future islands are. You know, that's okay. Now for the second island, which is Ares, is where Knuckles is. And that one was really nice. That one was very well done. The third island, Chaos, it was still a good island. Some people do criticize it, but I still enjoyed it. What I really wish they did though was have an ice island. I don't know, it's a snow island or maybe an area with snow, just because all snowboards that I've heard from Sonic, especially from Sonic, but also from other games, I've always loved the music. In fact, if I had to sit down for the first 3 Sonic games on the Genesis and tell you what my favorite one is, it would be the snowboard from Sonic 3. I love that music. I'm playing it in my head right now, and in fact, I'm playing it right now for you, just for fun. Now with the islands, something that does come up in criticisms, and I do agree, is that there's a lot of pop-in. So as you're running, you see a lot of materials in the air and rails and walls just kind of pop into the screen. From what I've heard, that was mainly due to the hardware on the Switch. They tried to make the same game for all 3 systems, well, I guess 4 if you count PC, without having to change the software or the graphics in the PlayStation, Xbox, and computers version. So because of that, again, this is just what it seems to me, there is the pop-in, but I don't mind as much. It is kind of jarring every now and then, but it's not that big of a deal for me. I mean, I play games that has generic graphics, games that are pixelated. Like right now, offline, my obsession is Vampire Survivor, and obviously that's not a very graphically intense game. Graphics doesn't really do much for me. I grew up on the Sega Genesis. I grew up on the PlayStation and PS2, the Polygon people, Final Fantasy VII. Just look at the original and you'll see what I'm talking about. I grew up before that too. But I understand why people complain about that. On the 4th island, there's actually no collectibles that you have to do. You're just meant to turn off the 5 or 6 satellites. I believe it's 5, but I could be wrong. And then it really is the area that it has the information dump. That is the main place you learn all the history that you need to know and all the things to set up the finale. But what was nice about it is the towers you're supposed to climb. Each of them has different elements to it, and each of them took long enough in its own. So it wasn't really go to this tower, 10 seconds later turn her off, go to your next one. It really did take some effort. So that was greatly appreciated. Okay, something else I really liked about the game was the humor in it. Considering I am a 90s kid, I was born in 82. Yes, that does make me 40 and old, hence the gray beard. And so the 90s was all about attitude, and that's where Sonic really blew up, was in the 90s. I believe it was 92 was his first game, don't quote me on that. And so I loved how they carried over his attitude here. Even in the opening, when I believe it's when Sage was talking to him, he just kept tapping his arm and just being very impatient. It's like, okay, I know where to go, let's go. He just runs, which I love the character continuity of that. The meta jokes also were great. So one of my favorites was when Sage was talking to Sonic. Sage was like, what's your end goal? And Sonic's like, well, I don't know, sometimes it's a floating ring, sometimes it's a spinning sign. I mean, that was great. The humor and the character continuity were great. Now let's start talking about the music. This music is top notch. It is awesome. I've constantly listened to it at work all the time. When I want to have some peaceful music, I would listen to the Kronos Island music back to back. When I want some energy to get some work done faster, I listen to the cyberspace music. They are awesome. And of course, everyone who says anything about this game, everyone number one reaction, everyone's highest praise is the boss music. And yes, the boss music, when you fight the Titans, they are awesome. I mean, they are wow. There's no words to it. Just listen to any video. Just look up Sonic Frontier undefeatable reactions. You'll get all the praises that you'll need. Yes, the boss music is wow. However, the cyberspace music is also great. Of course, I'm a huge EDM fan. Grew up on trance since the mid-90s, I believe. It was Wipeout 2097 is what introduced me to techno. And that was in the 90s. That was before Wipeout XL. That's how long ago it was. So I really enjoyed almost all of the cyberspace worlds. Again, there is that one that, but they can't all be famous. I mean, there's so much variety. There's even dubstep, cyberspace music as well. So they added more of the different varieties, not just one genre. So obviously there's gonna be at least one that doesn't hit me, but when you try and appeal to a large audience, you're not always going to hit 100%. Okay, so speaking of that, now a few negatives. One of my biggest ones is actually this scene, right here. They have been building up Sonic taking all that cyberspace energy since rescuing Amy in the first island. And then on the third island, when you release Tails from the cyberspace cage, the whole time when you're standing still, you're actually holding your head. And then on the fourth island, they really emphasize how much the corruption is getting to him. And actually that Sage was actually surprised how he could keep smiling. But then at the end, he shuts down the final one and he freezes. So he's stuck between both worlds. I mean, that is what it was building up to. And then they hold hands together. They go back to cyberspace and he's back. It's like, I had this reaction. Literally, this reaction. So, that's one of the negatives I have. Another negative that I have, but I can understand though, is the puzzles for the maps to unlock it. Some people have also pointed out that they kind of expected it to get harder, which technically it did, but it wasn't that much harder. After you do all the Ares Island, which is the second one, you really have the basis for all of them. I mean, there's the kickball one. The only thing is there's more rings, but it gives you more time, I believe. There's the one where you go back and forth side to side. The one where you go up and then you fall down through a bunch of blue squares. I mean, they're all really the same, with a few exceptions that were nice. My favorite ones that were kind of creative were the ones where you're racing against a clock. Like you had to get from point A to point B before the time ran out. I enjoyed that because not only does it teach you the terrain, but it's also more of a challenge than just push 3 buttons or parry these things, but you can hold parry down as long as you want. So it's like, okay, I'll hold this button until you shoot me, okay? So I do wish they would have made it harder as you go to different islands, but I do understand this ain't Dark Souls. This ain't a puzzle game. So this is a type of game that they want you to beat. They want you to complete. It seems like they kind of dumbed it down so the younger audience could handle it and still proceed. Another thing that I didn't quite like was the final boss. Now, I know in Sonic 3 with the Sonic and Knuckles attached, I believe also just in Sonic 3 by itself, you don't get to the final boss unless you have all the emeralds collected. That I like. So you can beat the game, technically you beat Eggman, but it gives a bonus for those who actually complete, get everything they need. It gives you a bonus, so it gives you something to work for. And it gives you replayability, because the first time you're just going through enjoying the game, then you can go back and try to get all the emeralds so you can see what the final boss is like. In this game, they did the same thing, but instead of focusing on, say, like 100%ing all the islands or finishing all the cyberspace worlds, you just had to put it on hard. And it's just a flying bullets game, the same thing you do with the hacking submissions. As it's a final boss, I do agree, it is really a letdown. The final boss itself, being a big, huge moon, the way it's described that some people have brought up is that everyone sees it differently. So this could just be how Sonic sees the final one. And if that's the case, they might also be referring back to Unleashed, which I have not played. I should, because my son did buy it. So I can play it, but I just haven't yet. And it could be that for him, turning into that Sonic werewolf, whatever, could be like his nightmare type thing. But each of them could see something else, and they just had it as a moon for us. Who knows? That could just be people trying to defend it. I don't know. But yeah, it's just that was a letdown, considering how great the other Titans fights were. And I did enjoy the final one. I mean, it's not as awesome and awestruck as, say, the first three. Like, especially Knight. Knight was hard, but it was fun. And of course, the other two are great. But I still enjoyed that. It's just the end. I actually have not played it. I've watched someone else play it, and so I know what it is. It's like, it's just a hacking game. Whatever. But the ending was good. Especially Eggman's parts with Sage. Yeah, beautiful. So, as I mentioned at the start, my ranking is 9 out of 10. I mean, the story was great. The characters were great. The music is awesome, but it is a Sonic game, so of course. I like all the levels. I like the themes of the cyberspace, so you really get that 2D-3D feel of what Sonic game was for so long. But you still also, in the outside world, get that open world feel that they were going for. So I would say you get the best of both worlds. I know a lot of people didn't like the cyberspace, or they say it got tiring, but I always looked forward to them. The only downside would be the ending, which I understand with listening to a lot of game developers, is that they have a schedule to keep. And so they have to complete the game by the time all the marketing says this will be it. And so I'm curious to see with the DLC if they ever change that ending somehow. Or if they continue with it and then somehow bring it back. I don't know. But so they were probably just trying to rush. They were building up this huge thing that just one laser cut the world in half. Cut the Coco's world in half. And then, it ended up being a moon. So there's that. And I can understand the clipping in, but again, that doesn't bother me. So 9 out of 10 would highly recommend. So that is my review of Sonic Frontiers. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you're looking forward to the future games that I shall show you on this channel. But until then, in case I don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening,